cannot run, Obi-Wan. I am what you made me. The years have made you weak. You should have killed me when you had the chance. Now you will suffer, Obi-Wan. Your pain has just begun.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is my review of Obi-Wan Episode 3. We've only revisited Vader in the comics and in Rogue One movie, but we saw Anakin as a Sith Lord in his prime in Rogue One, wrecking shop on the rebellion with his famous corridor scene. But the writers didn't really touch upon what's inside of his head until now. Now Vader is tortured, he's bitter, terrifying, monstrous, and he's vulnerable as well, guys. The hurt that he's carrying can only be felt if you go back to watch episode 3, which I did last night. Then you can see he's driven by hatred and revenge and the level of what that means to us on this show. And this Obi-Wan show gets everything right about Darth Vader. He's both the classic Vader from the original trilogy, complete with James Earl Jones, guys. He even chokes out innocence while on the hunt for Obi-Wan, just using the Force to pull people through the windows, dragging them on the floor, lifting them in the air, just ripping the soul out of anybody who's near him. It was frightening to see, guys. The fear factor is something we never really witnessed on this level. I'll tell you why, because in Rogue One, Vader was fighting the rebellion soldiers trying to steal the plans from the Death Star. But here, he's walking around a town of innocents, people who have nothing to do with the war. It's pretty clear why they found the hut where Obi-Wan had taken the little girl in the town, because the people just gave up every bit of information they had. And now Vader instructs Reva to find Kenobi, promising her the position of the Grand Inquisitor if she succeeds. This means, guys, that the Grand Inquisitor seemingly does die. Strange when you consider his antagonist's role in the future Star Wars Rebels series, which happens in another 5 years. So it's safe to assume that Rebels is still canon and the Grand Inquisitor is not truly dead. And he'll return by the end of the Obi-Wan series. If he doesn't, then it'll be a new Grand Inquisitor that we'll see in the future. But either way, canon's not broken. Now, as I said last week, many people have been struck down by a lightsaber to appear again down the road. Darth Maul was also sliced in half and still is alive at this point. Now, Kenobi and Leia's transport lands on planet Mapuzo, and they proceeded to rendezvous with Haja. Finding no one there, they accepted a ride from the Imperial transport, but is eventually tracked down by a probe droid. Now, the one thing that we kind of see in this episode is you have some people who are pro-rebellion, who, would live and die by fighting the Empire. And you also saw that there were some people who watched the propaganda coming from the Empire, the Galactic Empire, and sort of was on board with everything they did. And it was very strange to see how some people had sort of stuck by the stormtroopers and was helping them in every way. I think we forget sometimes how Palpatine sucked everybody in and turned the Jedi against everybody by making them out to be the villains, saying that the Jedi was trying to overthrow the Republic. Now, they receive help from a female Imperial officer, Tala, who reveals that she's a member of the underground network, helping enemies of the Empire go underground. She escorts them to a secret underground passage so they can escape. Now, the Inquisitors arrive in the town with Vader. And as I said, he was punishing the people in the town to kind of lure Kenobi in. And Kenobi sends Leia and Tyler ahead while he provides a distraction. Big mistake. The confrontation between Obi-Wan and Vader kind of isn't what you guys thought about it. But in hindsight, it might disappoint some, as it wasn't the epic duel battle that we saw in the last film. But then that's the key to it working, guys. Vader force chokes Kenobi like he did with Padme, and he proceeds to drag Kenobi through fire, burning him. It was just right. I felt it was just right. It showed that Vader was still using his hatred to get even stronger within the dark side. And it also showed that Obi-Wan was closing himself off from the Force that had made him weaker over the last 10 years, leading up to the story. Obi-Wan once said that using a gun was primitive in episode 3 after he shot General Grievous. But without the Force to aid him, he was forced to use this said weapon to save Leia from the stormtroopers at the checkpoint. But in the fight, it showed us what we all felt, that Obi-Wan was a lost soul. The Force had left him after he abandoned it. And after this series, he actually starts to train more within the Force and is back on top of his game, which is when we see him kill Darth Maul in Rebels. It's almost foreshadowing Obi-Wan's connection to the Force to speak to Qui-Gon Jinn as well.
My imagination, it must be.
No. It is I, Qui-Gon Jinn. Obi-Wan, have you done as I asked? Have you trained the boy?
Master Qui-Gon, how are you here?
I am here because you are here.
No, I don't understand. What is this place?
Unlike any other, a conduit through which the entire force of the universe flows.
Are we in danger?
This planet is both an amplifier and a magnet. 3 are here who seek Skywalker. They, like me, believe him to be the chosen one.
You were right. The Force within him is stronger than any known Jedi. I've trained him as well as I could, but he's still willful and balance eludes him.
If he is the chosen one, he will discover it here.
And if not?
Then you must realize with his power, this is a very dangerous place for him to be.
At this point, the Force is lost on Obi-Wan as he struggles to connect to the Force, and he cannot feel Qui-Gon Jinn, while at the same time Yoda is strengthening his connection on the Force at Dagobah, and Obi-Wan was getting weaker by hiding himself on Tatooine. Seeing Vader drag Obi-Wan's helpless body across the fire was brutal. It was iconic, in regards to the pain Anakin once suffered. When Obi-Wan asks Anakin, "What have you become?" Vader answers, "I am what you made me," showing again that he blames Obi-Wan for everything. Now, the lightsaber battle was never going to be a classic, as I said, but it just meant more to me because it showed where they are in their journeys at this point. The brutality comes with Vader's pain. It's something Padme said could be redeemed. She always said there's good in him. And it took Luke to bring that to the fore. But at this moment, Anakin is a tortured soul, and Obi-Wan cannot help him. So in this episode, Kenobi is the catalyst of Vader's revenge and the source of Leia's hope. This approach to storytelling fits perfectly with where we are right now in the timeline. That's why I don't want fans to get too carried away with the biggest criticism we're facing so far with the lack of action. We should be more focused on reintroducing those bonds and establishing these characters a little bit more. And that's exactly what Deborah Chow is doing. When Luke talks about Obi-Wan to Leia in the future when he says that she's his sister, we didn't know that Leia already met Obi-Wan. And she even thought at one point that he was her father, which we saw in this episode. But she decided to keep that information from Luke because Luke's bond with Obi-Wan was so personal. It just goes to show you how thoughtful Leia was, even at an older age. Now, Tala returns with a distraction and rescues Kenobi so that Vader doesn't kill him, while Leia tries to escape. However, Reva is waiting for Leia at the other end of the tunnel. And this episode spends a significant amount of time trying to make Obi-Wan and Leia seem increasingly vulnerable at this point in time. We know that both of them are going to become a lot stronger in the future, but it's just where we are seeing Obi-Wan at his weakest point. The revelation that Obi-Wan has a younger brother also offers up some tantalizing lore implications, some stuff that they can play with moving forward. This, guys, was a solid 8.8 out of 10. I'm really enjoying the show right now. Vader breathes new life into the show the moment he arrives. Obi-Wan reaches his lowest point, separated from Leia after being hunted by a full-strength Vader. It gives the viewer genuine emotional impact of the main hero. The music score, guys, as well, is just unbelievable. That, along with Vader's breathing, provided the base for some tense scenes. And it also is wonderful to listen to as well. There's a real feeling of balance between unraveling the plot and the limited action scenes that we're seeing. But I have to put a special mention to Leia. Leia's presence also helps the show feel like a seamless extension of the original trilogy. Now, little Vivian Leia Blair continues to be fantastic in this role. She steals every scene that she's in. And that Vader armoring scene when the armor's being attached to his body is just providing greater visual detail that we've not seen since episode 3. And this is actually better than that shot in episode 3. Also, the last thing to mention is we just found out that Anthony Daniels did come back in episode 1 for C-3PO. And he doesn't even have any lines of dialogue. But it was just watching and waiting to see whether James Earl Jones will be back in this episode too. And remember that we don't have any indication from any marketing to tell us who's going to be in the series and who isn't. But yes, James Earl Jones is back. And even at 91 years old, he provides almost pitch-perfect sounds when delivering Vader's lines, just like he did 40 years ago. Guys, let me know what your thoughts are in this episode, and I'll speak to you in episode 4. Peace out.